Welcome to fresponse.com. Today we're going to talk about fresponse Universal. Universal is our client-server solution for accessing remote disks, volumes, and data sources over stable and unstable networks. You can see right now we're looking at the fresponse Universal Management Console. It's cut into 3 sections: data sources, items, and activity across the top, with messages along the bottom. So essentially what the way this works is this is the management tool that we'll use to talk to our Universal servers. Expanding out the data sources here shows us that we have one Universal server configured in our test environment. Universal is client-server based, so subjects and examiners will communicate with that central server and then with each other. In addition to talking to fresponse Universal and remote subjects, we have a couple of different data collection mechanisms, something we call agentless collections or connections rather. This lets you collect data from SMB and SFTP shares. We have cloud servers, which lets you use credentials to snapshot running cloud servers by talking directly to the provider, and then cloud files, which is collecting file and folder content from remote cloud storage environments. All of these environments, providers, credentials, etc., are covered in more detail in both videos and mission guides on our website. Today we're going to focus our attention on fresponse Universal itself. We're going to right-click, or actually double-click on the icon and authenticate to the Universal server that we've set up previously. Now, in order to get to communicate with a subject, we're going to need to get the fresponse Universal subject software running on a subject. So these deployment settings are what we're going to use when we push the software to a remote machine. You can see service name, description, executable name, etc. The deployment process, we have a number of different options. You can export a graphical subject executable that you could go run on the remote machine manually. We could export a covert Microsoft software installer, or MSI, that you could use your own third-party tools to deploy, or we can use the fresponse Universal Management Console armed with credentials to push the subject over the network. And that's what we're going to focus our attention on today. When I open this, when I click this link or this menu item, it's going to take us to a dialog where we're going to configure some credentials and how we want to deploy the software. If we had more than one Universal server, we would select the one we want the subject to connect to in that dropdown. Configuring credentials is all about putting in credentials for a remote machine that will allow us to deploy the software. If we're deploying to a remote Windows system, we should put in a username, domain, and password for an account sufficient to communicate, interact with, and somewhat control the remote machine. So these are things like creating services, opening shares, removing shares, etc. If you are running as a user with the appropriate level of permissions, you can always attempt to run as the current user to do that deployment. If you're deploying to non-Windows systems, you could either put in a user account and assume root privileges using su or sudo, or a root account directly. Non-Windows systems deployment is done via SSH and SFTP. Windows systems is done with SMB, file and network printer sharing services. All right, so I haven't made any changes here. I'll go ahead and hit cancel. Now we're going to put in the remote machine by hostname that we want to deploy the fresponse Universal software to. Once we've got the hostname in there, we'll hit install and start. This is going to resolve the hostname, authenticate to the remote machine, copy the executable, create a share, copy the executable, register the executable as a service, and start the service. It took me longer to say that than it took for it to actually happen. And here you can see the remote subject talking to our Universal server. We've got a couple of options. We can attach a subject target or we can image a subject target. In both cases, the concepts are pretty much the same. We're giving you access to the remote machine's disks and volumes. If you want to interact with them, you want to attach a target. If you want to image them alone, you want to hit image a target. So when we attach a target, we get this list of different options. And there's a lot of things to cover. We're not going to go too deeply into it today. You'll find all of that covered in depth in the manual. But we're going to go ahead and select an individual drive and attach it to our machine. Now what happens at this point is we take the remote machine's disk 1. We've attached it to our machine as disk 1 completely read-only. So at this moment, any forensic tool you want to use, you can point at physical drive 1, you can perform any kind of analysis you want, you can collect any sort of data. In addition, you could use fresponse to image this newly attached disk. The concept is really simple. We're taking the remote machine's physical devices, we're turning them into real-time physical devices on your examiner machine suitable for use with any forensic or e-discovery product. When you're done, right-click and detach the disk, then right-click and stop and remove the subject software. It's really just that simple. fresponse Universal is all about giving you access to remote machines and systems over the network in a tool and vendor-neutral manner. You'll find more information at www.f-response.com. Thanks, and have a great day.